I'm Tom Alibrando with IWI US. We're going to talk about X95 assembly and disassembly and some of the little tricks that we have for putting it together in a quick and efficient way. So before you do assembly or disassembly, or in this case disassembly, we're going to clear the weapon, cycle it back, observe that it is clear, and you're going to have to leave the bolt forward, verify the weapon is on safe. And the way you'll do that is you just make sure that the arrow is pointed at S and you're good to go. All right, so there's 3 pinholes that we're interested in disassembly. If you look at the right side of the weapon, at the rear and the top, right in front of where the butt is the top pin here. That is the disassembly pin. What you're going to do, the easiest way to do this, is you're going to put it muzzle down so you can see that pinhole. You're going to push it across, and when you pull the pin and it's captured, it's not going to come out of the weapon. You'll see it kind of pop open like that. So it should look, the door should look about like this. We're going to grab the actual buffer assembly, which you can see with your fingers, and you just pull it out. There you go. This is the bolt group, the recoil spring assembly. We're going to lay that down. Now, we can also pull the trigger pack out of it, okay? And that's 2 other pins that are on the right side. So to disassemble the trigger pack, grab a punch. In the field, you know, guys would use a round or something like that. But you pull these straight across, like so. And they're, again, captured. And you need to make sure that both pins are pulled all the way out. And you're going to grab the door. And you'll notice the door, there's 2 little tabs on the left and right side at the very bottom. This is the bolt catch. You're going to pull that down, and then you can pull it out. And there's another way of doing that that's even simpler. Let me show you what that is. When I pull down on the bolt catch, what you're going to do is you're going to hold it down in the downward position, just turn the weapon down, and it'll fall out of the weapon. That's all you got to do. It's simple. Okay? There's a long leg and a short leg. Okay, and there's the hammer laid back. We'll get back to this. Okay, I'm going to put the main part of the weapon down. I'm going to grab the bolt group here. We have a timing bar that runs right through the center of it. Okay, this is the recoil spring and recoil spring guide. To disassemble the weapon, you know, you'll notice that this bar moves back and forth. I want to pull it all the way to the rear. What you're going to do is you're going to grab the buffer itself, and you're going to take this bar and push it straight through until it pops out the top. And it's going to stick out the top about, I don't know, 1/3 of an inch or so. Okay, this needs to be all the way back, and the bar needs to pop outside the buffer to actually disassemble this. Otherwise, it's not going to come apart. And I'll explain why in a minute. Now, if you look on the right side of the bolt carrier, you're going to see a pin. It's perfectly round here, and it has a flat spot on the opposite side. Okay. What you do is you take your punch or whatever, you're going to push that pin from right to left, and it's going to come out on the opposite side. And that pin has a little groove cut in the top of it. Okay. You notice that the bolt jumped out. There's actually a firing pin spring in there, and that's what's pushing the bolt forward. That's going to be important to us when we reassemble it too. So I'm going to pull the bolt towards the front, and you'll notice that the firing pin is now dangling out. Everything in the bolt for assembly, disassembly, and assembly comes out the front, comes out the big end. Don't try and assemble anything out the back end because there's not a lot of space here, it's not going to fit real well. I'm going to grab the firing pin, I pull it out, and you'll notice that I have the firing pin and firing pin spring. This does come off, okay? It can be put on either direction, it's not a big deal, okay? So right now I have the bolt carrier, the bolt, firing pin and spring, and this is called a bolt guide pin. It's not a cam pin. It guides the bolt itself. Now, to explain one thing, why this bar is so important for disassembly, you'll notice that there's a little half moon cutout inside the bolt guide pin. So what holds the bolt guide pin in place is actually that bar that you pulled out the rear. So when you pull it out the rear, okay, like so, it allows that to come out. If I push that bar forward, it goes in that groove, and you notice that the bolt guide pin is not going to come out. Again, I pull it through the rear, that bolt guide pin will fall out. To reassemble the bolt group, okay, you're going to notice on the rear part of the firing pin, there's a flat spot on top, and that there's stuff that hangs down. It kind of looks like an upside down saddle, and that's what we want to do. We want to take it, put it saddle down, okay, saddle down. On the back of the bolt carrier itself, there's a little ridge that's cut into the back. The saddle is going to actually go over that ridge. You have to do it from the front. And this flat spot has to be facing up. So you go in from the front, You're going to rest it on the saddle, and when you get it on the saddle, you're going to see part of that firing pin protruding out the back of the bolt carrier, and that's what you want. Okay. Now you grab the bolt. You'll notice there's a helix cut in the bolt. That helix cut has to be in the up position, right? The reason it has to be in the up position is it's got to have the bolt guide pin go over the top of it, run right through the top of it. So if you turn it any other direction, that bolt guide pin is not going to go in. So I take the bolt, I'm going to pick up the front of the firing pin, I drop it in, okay? Now you remember how when you pulled the bolt guide pin out, you saw the bolt jump forward, right? That's because the firing pin spring is pushing against the bolt and it's creating that tension. So I just need to, with everything aligned properly, I'm going to push the bolt back just slightly, right? So I can actually fit the bolt guide pin in from left to right and push it all the way through, okay? And remember, there's a flat spot on the back of that bolt guide pin. It can only go in one way, okay? If it sticks out in any way, it's not going to go back inside the weapon. Now, after I reassemble this, okay, I'm going to push the recoil mechanism forward, push that tab forward, okay? Now, nothing can come out. It's not going to, the bolt guide pin's not going to come out, and the weapon won't come, or the bolt won't come apart. To do a quick test to make sure you got to put it back together correctly, just kind of push down on it from the bottom, turn it around, and it's kind of like the old TNT plunger you see in the cartoons. I'm going to grab the top of the plunger, push down. Yep, it feels good, and you're done. Okay, so now your bolt assembly is put back together again. Okay, to put in the actual trigger pack, remember we said we have a long leg and a short leg. Okay, easiest way to do this, I'm going to pull the door down from the bolt catch. I'm going to hold it, exaggerate it, pull it forward so I can easily get that in there. The orientation of the holes is going to match the orientation of the pins as you pulled it out. So the long leg will face the muzzle. In this case, the muzzle's facing down, so the long leg is down. I'm going to drop it in, push it all the way in, and then you'll know you got it right when you let go of the door and it just falls flat. Now all you have to do is come in the opposite side, push the pins across, and the actual trigger pack's now been reinstalled inside the receiver. To put the recoil mech back in the gun, again, the easiest way to do this, let gravity help you. Have the muzzle down on whatever workstation I'm working on. I'm going to take the piston head. The piston goes to the top. It can only go in one way. Bolt goes on the bottom. I drop it in, push down. Now you're going to feel resistance against this door. And remember, that's the recoil spring assembly pushing against the buffer assembly. So it's going to want to hold it open. You hold it down, and then you take that pin, you drive it straight through till it's captured, and you're done. And like with everything we do when we assemble and disassemble, we have to do a function test. So one thing I'll do is I'll cycle the bolt a couple times and make sure it feels like it's nice and smooth, like it's supposed to work, right? Take the weapon, put it on safe, attempt to fire. Nothing happens. I put it on fire, press the trigger. I'm going to hold the trigger to the rear, then I'm going to cycle the bolt to the rear and let it go aggressively. I slowly ease up on the trigger, ka-thunk. I hear that reset. I know the weapon's functioning properly. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, a little instructional video on how to assemble or disassemble the X95. And if you have any questions for us, just look us up at IWI.us.